All right, I think we can get started. A very warm welcome, everyone. My name is Yikwan from Shearwater Singapore office. So our topic today is workforce planning. So it doesn't matter you're already doing some sort of workforce related planning, or this is a completely new concept for you. We hope that you can get some insights after this session and eventually achieve building workforce plans as agile as your business. So I guess most of our participants today here are HR professionals. So welcome to this session and feel free to ask any questions you have after this webinar. So the question that I would like you to think throughout this session is, why do I need to have a workforce planning? And are you still relying on spreadsheets to manage your workforce plans that can easily leave you unable to adapt to the dynamic nature of your business? So plus, is your workforce plan out of sync with your finance and your corporate strategic plans? Workforce planning is more than just headcount. The goal of it is to have the right people in the right jobs at the right time with the minimum cost. So our solution, Workday Adaptive Planning, is here to help you achieving this target. It is not constrained to any single industry. As long as there's HR department in your organization, so the solution can be considered. And the solution can be fully customized to meet your industry-specific requirements. That's why today I'm actually also seeing a quite diversified profile of our participants. So we have guests from various verticals, including engineering, logistics, telecom, healthcare, education, business service, as well as public sector. So next, let me just do a quick, very short introduction about us. So we are Shearwater based in Singapore. We are Workday's channel partner in Asia. We help them promote, sell, and implement adaptive planning solution across Asia. So we have our presence in ASEAN countries, Japan, Greater China, and Korea. So regarding Workday, it is a US-based software tech company for the adaptive planning solution. The customer base is quite large and still growing. Up until this year, 4,500 plus customers in 90 countries around the globe are using it. So this is just a very quick introduction about who we are and what we hope you can achieve after this session. Without further ado, I'll pass down the time to my colleagues, Thomas and Yixin, to start today's main topic about workforce planning. So enjoy this webinar. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Thomas, based out of Japan, talking to you today about workforce planning, and with me is Yushin. So I myself is a senior consultant with Shearwater Asia. I've been with the company for about 5 years. Although my only expertise is not in workforce planning, this is something that we have spent a lot of time working with. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We have broad experience in utilizing, implementing Workday Adaptive Planning on a broad spectrum of different types of businesses and business use cases. So the main thing that we want you to leave with today, the message is, we want you to think how to act instead of reacting when things happen in your business that needs attention. So the theme is don't react, act, when it comes to workforce planning in this case. And just one small thing for the questions, we would like them to happen at the end of the session. We have a dedicated Q&A session. So please, at that point, at that venture, we will take as many questions as you may have. So thank you very much for your consideration. First, I will just quickly go through the agenda for today. So Yushin, if you move to the next slide. So overall, we'll be talking about the concept and the workflow of workforce planning in general. So that will be the first part, but we will be deep diving into 4 different topics that are deeply related to workforce planning. First is headcount and compensation planning. This is, of course, something that all serious businesses will do, must do, in order to create comprehensive budgeting and forecasting when they do FP&A. We are going to talk about resource planning, the next step here, which is more about how to manage, for example, orders that are coming in from our SAP systems or CRM systems. We are showing how that can be done within Workday Adaptive, planning and forecasting for this. Then we're going to, on the third part, talk of talent and skills planning. But this is maybe something that is the most or least used, but somewhere we believe we can get a lot of return on investment if we spend some time building a model, taking into account how we build talent and how we acquire talent for our particular company. Finally, we have organization modeling, and this is mostly about one-off events such as job cuts or restructuring of our business. But first, Yushin will take you through generally what workforce planning is and the what's and the whys. So please take the floor, Yushin.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Yuxin. Now I will talk about what is the workforce planning and why we need it. The workforce planning is the process of analyzing, forecasting, and planning workforce supply and demand and assessing gaps. It is important for organizations to have right people, right skills in the right places at the right time. Here is the 6 phases of the workforce planning. The first phase is setting strategic direction for your workforce plan and make sure it is aligned with organization's strategic plan. The second phase is supply analysis, which help organizations to understand the current and projected workforce. Here are some best practices in this analysis process. And using these tools can bring some benefits not only for HR, but also for the whole company. The third phase is conducting demand analysis to analyze the current and future workforce requirements. You can use the tools and similarly, they have some benefits. Next phase is gap analysis to help you understand the gaps between demand and supply. These tools can help you better recognize the existing gaps and provide clear direction for learning new job types. After finishing the preparation work, it is important to conduct solution implementation. Organization needs appropriate workforce interventions like headcount and compensation planning, resource and human capital planning, talent planning, and organizational modeling to close the gaps and enable organization to meet its mission. This is our client organization. It is difficult for finance departments to keep up with the budgeting works, and each process was disconnected for them. And also, it is hard for them to align hiring or training strategies with budget from finance. So we propose a workforce model using adaptive planning to link actors and have all planning related tasks done on the platform. Now, welcome my colleague Thomas to talk about headcount and compensation planning.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. So yes, I will be talking about now headcount and compensation planning, and I will actually be showing some things inside of the model. But first, I will go through some general themes in headcount and compensation planning first. First and foremost, of course, salary. Some other important aspects is if we have any benefits that are payable by the company, and of course also bonuses and commissions and so on. So if you go to the next slide. So first of all, when we talk about headcount and compensation planning, we tend to have 5 key goals, and those are to itemize, meaning we want to break down our employees into various categories in order to calculate salaries and so on and so forth. But we also want to be able to slice according to different dimensions. It could be a job title, or it could be anything really. We want to be able to date track or date tracking, and we want to be able to calculate and capture taxes and insurances applicable to this individual. we want to be able to track hours and overtime and the pay and the impact on our benefits that has. And finally, we want to be able to capture bonuses, budgeted bonuses or commissions for our employees. And on the right here is just an example of a report. I'll be showing this inside of the system. So if you go to the next slide. So first, after salaries, we have benefits planning, and on the right here, you can just see a sort of familiar breakdown of different types of benefits that can be considered. It could be medical costs, it could be pension costs, like as you know, in the US, we have 401ks, but this is very country or region specific. However, in Workday Adaptive, we can actually consolidate all of these different, if you have multiple territories, we can account for all of these different calculations, and keep everyone in the same headcount planning sheet. And for this particular case, I'll be showcasing a CPF, relatively complex CPF calculation. So people who are in Singapore, you probably know this. So I hope you can get some insight from that. So if you go to the next slide, sorry. Finally, of the three payouts here, we have bonuses. It can be a challenging task to properly prepare budgets for calculating these, as they are very performance dependent. And there is an example here on the right where we have a probability adjusted sort of bonus payout for a particular employee. But as you can see, there's actually no way that our actuals and the budgets will ever match, because as you can see, there is more than 50% chance that we will get a $21,000 variance for this particular person, because we probability adjust in this case. So this is one way of doing it, but we can also do it in other ways. So it's just something to be aware of. If you go to the next slide. Okay, so the overall idea here is to bridge HR to finance, because HR and finance both have an interest in who is working for us and where, and their different impacts. So HR may be more interested in closing gaps and making sure we have the right talent in the right teams to perform our task, whereas finance may be more focused on budgets being kept. And so there can be a small bridge or a gap here between the two that we hope to be able to gap by using a system such as Workday Adaptive. So I will share my screen and then I'll go through some pages. Hopefully you'll find informative. So, okay, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, good. So the first page here is just, this is the first page you would see when you go to Workday Adaptive, and you would log in with a username and password, just like you would any other cloud-based software, like your email and so on and so forth. And on the first page, after logging in, we have the landing page. Here you can access tutorials, product documentation, and so on and so forth. And from the main menu, we can access our sheets, reports and dashboards, and any other model related pages within Workday Adaptive. So the first thing that I will just show is an example of a headcount planning sheet. And as you can see, we have a department here where these people belong. One line is one employee. They have a date of birth. This is something we will need to calculate CPF. We have name, job title. We can put in identity. So also here is for CPF calculation purposes, whether or not they're Singapore citizens, foreigners, or even second or third year residents. We can add things such as a start date and an end date, so that we can automatically capture when they leave in the budget. We add in hours per week if they are hourly paid, or we have a flat pay rate per year. We can add commission targets. And in our case, we have a custom built bonus payout scheme that is paid out in the summer and the winter, and it is based on, as you can see here, we give them a ranking, and based on the ranking, their bonus will increase or decrease. So we can even do very comprehensive bonus and commission planning in this way. And then finally, we have the headcount here. So this sheet holds all of the information on our employees. And in this particular case, we have this weekly production forecast here. These are the versions. So we have in Adaptive many versions, as many as we want to make. We can create. So for example, working budget, forecast, or in this case, performance and bonus planning. So we can make as many as we want. And we can drill into individual roles and then see the impact that this person has on various accounts. So for example, I can see the personnel allocations, I can see the headcount, I can see CPF and salaries and so on and so forth. I'll be showing this more detail in the reports, but we can drill into each individual and see the impacts. Next, I'll be showing a report, and this report is capturing, as you can see here, we have our GNL, some of it at least, the cost of the workforce, so salaries, commission, bonuses, and then taxes and benefits broken into health benefits, retirement, payroll, taxes, recruiting, and so on. And here we have our actuals. These actuals can be captured from our HCM system if we have such, or it can be pulled from any other outside system if we have a payroll system that we're using. Then inside of Adaptive, we will generate our budgets. And then as you can see here, they are compared one-to-one, in this case for March and year to date. And you can see the variances in percent, and we can even put in a flag. So if we have something like this, where we are above a certain threshold, we can put in a sort of trigger flag here. So it's something that we need to pay attention to. Next is a custom report that I have built. This is calculating the CPF payments as a very complex, a relatively complex calculation. And this is done by the individual employee. So as you can see here, we have employee 2, meaning that we do not know any personal data about this person, but we can see their ID here. We could show their name, but for privacy purposes, we can do it in this way too. The system is, so this you would normally not see in the report, but it's just for demonstrating purposes. The system is actually capturing their particular age in the month, and this is pertinent for CPF calculation because as you progress in age, your CPF contribution change. But in the top here, we have so base salary and a performance-based bonus, as I said in June and in December. So that's the model here, and the total compensation. And then we have the total CPF on ordinary wages, which is calculated. And here we can see it's from 55 years and below, because the person is less than 55 years old. And we have the broken into employer contribution and employee contribution. And the same for the additional wages. The calculation is made here and giving us a total of $37,740 for the fiscal year of 2021. If you don't believe that this calculation is correct, I actually went ahead and went to the official website of cpf.gov in Singapore, where they have a calculator where you can enter this data. So this is the same salary data that you saw in the base salary and the bonus, and calculating the total contributions payable, we get the exact same result here. But in our report, we have the additional employer contribution and the employee contribution for additional context here. Okay, finally, we have, other than sheets and reports, dashboards. So this particular dashboard is an overview of, or maybe mostly for human resources. Of course, we can make this for for financial planners and so on as well. But as you can see here, we have some detailed information related to HR, but it is not static. So all of this, these charts you're seeing here, we can hover over our data, and we can see where the data is coming from, the breakdown and so on. So here's a pie chart. We have some bar charts with the headcount trend and so on. But we can also add in KPIs. So this is for the total headcount for the month of June 2021. So I can see 360 here. So that doesn't maybe make a lot of sense to me. So what I can do is click it, and then I can slice the data however way I want. So these are dimensions here. So let's say I want to slice the data according to job title. Then I can see that in the department that I drilled into, we have a number of machinists, technicians, assemblers, and then a smaller group of managers here. And we can continue to drill into our data in this fashion. We can do that with all of our charts here. So I hope that gives you a good idea of some of the capabilities of the headcount and compensation planning. Then we will be going back to the presentation, and Yushin will be, I will recap just headcount and compensation, and we'll be moving on to the next topic. So I talked about bridging HR and the finance. I hope that showing what I did can give you an idea how that can happen. So Yushin, if you go to the last slide. So just to recap here, we have our 5 key goals that I talked about that we capture in the screen, or sorry, in the sheet with all the breakdown details, and then we generate reports and dashboards to inform us and to do our budgeting forecasting work for compensation. But that is it for headcount and compensation planning. Next, Yushin will be talking about resource management.
Thanks, Thomas, for talking about headcount planning. And the next second solution is resource planning and human capital planning. The primary challenge for our client's organization was to measure workforce resource availability and utilization to ensure that resources are not overbounded, but at the same time are utilized to optimal level. The key goal of resource planning is to contain shift, OT, equipment, seasonal variability, illness, leave types, holiday, and PTO. Resource planning seeks to plan in order to achieve the operation targets and operation demands of the business. Our resource planning system can help you to achieve unified platform management for operation, workforce scheduling, execution, and planning. Pull actual data from other ERP systems such as NetSuite, SAP, which can automatically and quickly obtain the order quantity. And then, according to the order quantity and further realize the workforce deployment, scheduling management, but how to correctly and appropriately allocate the labor for industry with a large number of people is actually difficult. Scheduling sheets to conduct employee scheduling management, individual shift, overtime management, staff leave management can well meet the custom production line abnormal processing needs. Now I will show you something related to our system. In this case, the operation targets for the production departments is that they need to process the received invoices every day. The numbers of the targets is assigned by the managers, so they need to have enough workforce to meet their daily targets. In this production line, target output for each employee per hour is 21. Productivity hour for a day is 7.5 hours, and the target utilization rate is 95%. In the resource planning sheet, users can pour input data from ERP into sheets, and then the system can automatically calculate the inputs make a comparison between the budget utilization hours and the target utilization hours and calculate the required OT. In January 1st, you can see the total input was 2,144. The available headcount LA day is 12. So the automatic calculation, so the budget productivity hour is 88.13, which is less than the target utilization hours, 96.99. So 8.87 hours OT is required. But at the day, the total process invoices is only 992. So the unposted invoices will move to the next day. But in the January 3rd, the total input is 1,603. The available headcount is 11. So the budgeted productivity hour is 80.63, which is more than the target utilization hours, 72.52. So employees don't have to work in overtime. Also, adopting adaptive, the scheduling management is more convenient. HR can impose employee, PTO, and leave types by employee ID, and each data was connected between our resource planning and the human and headcount planning model. It optimized the deployment of the labor force, improved the labor efficiency, reduce unnecessary overtime and labor costs. Also, after pulling data into our sheets, we could create various dashboards to conduct strategic analysis. I can show you some charts in our dashboards. Here you can see the bar charts. It shows the number of headcount available versus the required headcounts in our production line. The next mixed line chart outlines the budget utilization hours versus the target utilization hours. And next, the line chart shows the number of invoices for posting. And then we can make a comparison between our actual headcount requirements versus the forecast headcount requirements. And also, we have bar charts to show the utilization deficits. The last two sheets is about employee scheduling and the overtime planning. Let's see if the EMP5 employee asks for a day paid off in January 2nd. The users who monitor the time off will put into -1 in the sheets and then click Save. You can see all the dashboards are updated real time. Okay. We have resource planning to cover day-to-day operations of the organization. Human capital planning will include the skill and competency mix analysis of our workforce and conduct performance and diversity analysis. So operation managers and human resource managers interact primarily on administrative issues, but they should communicate regularly and frequently to determine the skill and qualifications required. By working together, they can benefit from reduced cost per hire and turnover. In addition, the organization benefits from appropriate succession planning and adequate staffing. Conducting these two planning can help us to know how the competitions and their performance will impact the business. The first two solutions can be applied to all divisions, but that's not enough. They need talent planning to assess the current and future talent needs for some specific divisions. For our client's organization, the secondary challenge for project managers in R&D departments was finding resources with the right qualifications and experiences for their projects and getting them allocated on their projects. This was easier said than done because resources are spread across different offices, countries, and often work on multiple projects at the same time. So following the 4 steps, the talent planning system helped them to explore the dynamics of their workforce. both in terms of the current and future supply and demand. In demand analysis, you need to identify the workforce skills required to meet projected needs and examine internal and demographics in these 4 aspects. In supply analysis, you need to determine internal supply and project future workforce supply required. The table in the left has listed the demand analysis and supply analysis for R&D departments between organization and its labor market. According to the results of the analysis, you can identify the number of employees in each job, the knowledge, skills, and abilities possessed by those employees, and the characteristics of the hiring sources. Gap analysis involves comparing the projected workforce supply to the forecasted workforce demand. If the supply equals the projected demand, and then no staffing changes are necessary. On the other hand, the number of personnel and the required knowledge, skills, or abilities may fail to meet future needs when demand exceeds supply if you cause a gap. Conversely, the number and characteristics of the workforce may exceed future needs when supply exceeds demand if you cause a surplus. Gaps and surplus are mitigated through solution analysis. We modulate one of the challenges for R&D departments may require to analyze the skill sets within the organization and then find employees with the appropriate set of skills to meet the growing business. The first table is about the technical skill sets, needs, and supply in the R&D department, and then you can drill into the employee competency plan sheets to see the specific skills and detailed information each employee in the second table. Similarly, I will show you something in our system. Similarly, users can put data into our competency plan sheets. We can easily drag down the accounts to create various dashboards. I will show you some charts in our dashboards. Here is the gap analysis table. You can see in the past 3 months, we expect 2 gaps exist in data science skill. So HR need to have a conversation with finance department to discuss either hire or asking for training for the current employees, or they need to take some other strategies to break the gaps. The second line chart outlines the skill gaps exists in different skill sets. And also the next chart diagram summarizes the skill mix by employee. And then in this chart, we can drill down by different dimensions. Here we can drill down by level. And then you can see the level distributions of the employee with the analytical skills. Like we have 11 employees with the intermediate level, but only 1 employee with the expert level. And also, we have the bar chart to outline the level of each skill set by employee. If the gap exists, and then the next step for them is to take some necessary actions to break the gaps. And then we'll go back to our slides. HR can implement some gap closing strategies like recruitment, selection, training, or retention. We can use the 4B strategy. Hereby means bringing new talent from outside. HR needs to specify how much it costs to recruit a new employee. Build means develop the talents of people within the organization. There are also some training costs occurs. You can see a simple training cost breakdown. Borrow means utilize or relocate talent from outsourcing or contingent workforce to assess needed skills and ideas. I can show you something in our system. Here you can see in the R&D department, there is 2 gaps in data science skills. But when we change to the IT department, you can see the skill supply for these data science skills. The skill supply exceeds the skill demand in data science. There is overstaffing. If HR agrees to transfer one of the employees from IT department to R&D department to cover skill gaps. Let's see how it happens. We can choose EMP 37 employee, and then we change it to R&D department. We click save. Here we refresh our dashboard. Yeah, here you can see there's no gaps. But if we move employee from one location to another, or borrow employee for remote work, it will also cause relocation costs. Bind means retain the most talented employee in vital roles. The period to retain top performance in the organization is a long-term process. HR need to weigh the cost of adopting retention strategies. Here we have focus breakdown table related to 4B strategy. In adaptive, we can also create 4 scenarios and make a comparison. It will be easier for organizations to decide which plan it wants to adopt that will save the organizations more costs and bring more benefits. The proper talent planning helps organizations to recognize the most talented employees to become the potential future leaders whenever there is vacant position and make sure there are no talent gaps between organizations. So the HR departments and the business team must cooperate in developing an effective program for employee training, development, performance, bridging HR to business line and finance. When problems arise, they work together to find solutions that keep employees satisfied and keep the business on track to meet its financial and strategic goals. Restructuring and M&A are a one-time event. Such events don't happen very often in the organization. However, the HR departments also need to have a corresponding workforce planning to optimize organization structure to meet demands and evaluate the impact of one-time events. To address the disconnected issues during the restructuring process, workforce planning should be in addition to monitoring human capital-related productivity gains that create value by increasing output while reducing costs. HR should influence the strategic choices leading to restructuring, like developing some strategies. Today, I will focus on the job cut situation. Under the economic effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, we assume that the company decide to discontinue a production line in the workshop for a few months. Layoffs are often one of the measures to reduce costs, but leaders should take several steps before cutting headcounts. There are 2 options for him to consider. The first one is employee retention, the other is new hire. They need to consider, for example, if the plan shutdown period is 3 months, and they are going to continue to hire the same people during the shutdown period, it will occur some costs. But if they decide new hires, they need to offer some compensations for layoffs and hire new employees after 3 months. But in our system, we have some cost drivers. There are expenses incurred by the company layoff plan. The line string is the cost drivers for employee retention. The line 4 to line are for new hires. Cost drivers can be fixed or can be variable. Users can input them flexible. The bottom account is the monthly results calculated by the system according to the cost driver when we input, and then we can create reports. and make decisions visually. In this case, the cost of keeping current employee is less than the new hires if the shutdown period is 3 months. But if the shutdown period is 6 months or 12 months or even longer, that's not the case. The powerful functions of adaptive can help you to make scenarios and cost drivers and analyze quickly and efficiently. Merger and acquisitions are tools business use to achieve organizational objectives. As much as 70% to 90% of M&A fail to achieve their anticipated strategies and financial objectives due to some factors. In order to succeed, they need to follow the key issues. Next, welcome my colleague Thomas to talk about the monitoring progress.
Thank you, Xin, for your demonstration. So the final step is to monitoring progress. And by that, we do not mean only of your budgets and forecasts, but on the system, the modeling itself. And how do we do that? Well, as we have demonstrated, we produce a number of sheets, reports, and dashboards, and we keep utilizing best practices to continuously update and improve our model. So we could start with a simple model and then continue to improve on it as time goes on. Good thing about Workday Adaptive is that it is it's highly scalable, so we can start small and build on top without breaking the model. So if you go to the next slide. So here is a breakdown of some of the things that we have shown you, but the key takeaways here is that we will instantly see the impacts of our workforce planning as we demonstrated with by changing some of the data. We were able to share these forecasts and what-if scenarios. For example, the job cut analysis that Yushin demonstrated. We can share this with whomever needs to make the decisions, and we can do that instantly. And most importantly, the data is not guesstimates. It is actually, it's informed by our past performance and live. We can share key insights with who needs to know it and when they need to know it. So if you go to the next page. So finally, and thank you for your attention so far, just going to recap here. But so workforce planning, what is it? Well, I hope we have been able to demonstrate it, but it is to find the people at the right cost, the right time, and to be able to place them in the right place. And of course, choose people who have the right skills, meaning that we get the person who is right for the job when it needs to be done. And we can consider things as such as diversity, the location to where they should be hired to be most efficient, the cost, our capacity, and their qualifications. So we have a very holistic view of workforce in this case. So what are we potentially achieving? Well, one, we do, as we said in the beginning, we act instead of react. So we anticipate and plan for change instead of making decisions when things starting to burn. So a good step. We potentially decrease our hiring costs, both because we are better at finding talent, but also because we reduce the number of people that we hire that were not a good fit. We improve our recruitment processes. We can align HR with the business strategy, as we discussed, bridging the gaps between HR and finance and operations. We can create, or we can put data behind our assumptions and allocations when we invest into talent or our talent channel. And finally, we can identify gaps both in our teams and in our talent chain, and take steps to close them before they become an issue. So all of this will help our bottom line and ensure a good ROI on our time and material investment into workforce planning. If you go to the next slide. So that concludes our presentation. I hope that you have gained some insights now we will be taking some questions from the floor. Keep in mind that some questions may be of a very complex nature, and we are of course, very willing to also discuss things with you individually at a later date. So do keep that in mind. We are open to that as well. So without further ado, I think we can go ahead and see if there's any questions from the audience. But thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Yuxin. Yeah, let's open the floor to the participants. So feel free to ask any questions. So you can type it in the chat box, or you can just say it out. Yeah. So you can unmute yourself and just ask.
Hello.
Yes, please, Hidayat.
Okay.
Yes.
This is me, Tara. I'm from Samudra. Thank you for the presentation, Yuquan, Yuxin, and Thomas and team. I would just like to ask a simple questions with regard to this workforce planning. Is this a module by itself, or does it need to be integrated, ultimately to make it more effective with the legacy HRIS system? Because as I see it, I think many of us already have our human resources information systems, which does a lot of the Kanban recruitment and to some part the organization design. Yeah. But I see the workforce planning is more of a front end and feeding some of those gaps into the recruitment process, and then the recruitment process will close the cycle, after you recruited the people with the right skills and so forth, and then make a close. So what has been the experience, from your team in implementation workforce planning? Is this something that can run standalone, or it will need to be integrated with the back end of our HRIS? That's the first one. And second one is with regard to the number of employees that makes our investment cost justified. Is there a number that you would suggest, for this system to be in place? Because if it's too small, maybe it will not be cost justified. So that's my two key questions. Thank you.
Okay, Thomas, you want to take the first question?
Yeah, so you can't, on the costs side, I would like you to answer. But to answer your first question, Talia had that, is that saying correct? Sorry. How do you, yeah, that, sorry.
Tara, just call me Tara.
Tara, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sorry for that. You are pointing at something correctly here, but as for Workday Adaptive, it's not a payroll system. It's first and foremost a planning and forecasting tool, but the system is flexible enough that it could be standalone. But if you do have a HCMM system or payroll system, and that could be Workday or any other payroll system, we can connect through API or by a connector. We can connect to your actuals, pull those transactions into Workday Adaptive, and then on that basis help generate so actual versus budget and actual versus forecasts on the workforce planning. So this, of course, is not only limited to workforce planning. We could also go and do financial planning as well. But the topic of today's webinar is, of course, workforce planning. So we can do both ways, and the system is comprehensive enough that we could do it as a sort of standalone. But if you do have a system for your payroll already, we would highly recommend that we connect it so that we can help you, or so the system can help you build workforce planning budgets and forecasts that is actually informed by your actuals. So that would be my answer. If that's not comprehensive enough, please let me know.
No, yeah, I think it's quite expected with regard to that. It needs to be integrated. But in terms of your experience, in your clients, what is the most common use of the workforce planning? Is it as a standalone or integrated to the back end? To the payroll and all that.
Yeah, in our experience, at least personally, I have worked with clients in Japan who, I'm based in Japan, but that's besides the point, that have used workforce planning, but it is as a part of a larger sort of modeling exercise or planning exercise. They also do, they did revenue planning as well. But a large part of the reason they chose the Workday Adaptive was because they could do in-depth and very complex calculations on the bonus, and there are some very specific benefits calculations that needs to happen in Japan, and that tends to be the case for almost any region. The reason they went for Adaptive is that it can handle it all by assumptions, meaning they don't need to, once they update the assumptions, the system will calculate all of these benefits and bonuses based on performance and so on by itself. So they could spend their time on creating budgets based on their actuals and the budgets that they created and forecasts in Adaptive, spending time and analyzing those instead of spending the vast majority of their time to verify that the calculations they had done for their workforce was correct. So that's one use case where they could get some return on investment. It can be a standalone, but of course, Workday Adaptive is capable of doing all sorts of budgeting and forecasting, not just workforce.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Tara.
Yeah, and let me take the second question. So yeah, you asked a very good question. So first of all, basically the solution doesn't really matter the size of your company. That means the number of headcounts you have. So based on our past experience, our smallest clients may be only 50 headcounts, but we also have very large, large organizations, Fortune 500 company. So the company size is not the issue at all. So but how do you justify the so-called return on investment, right? So in terms of workforce planning, is like Thomas said, is one of the major application of the platform. So and it's mainly meant for you, HR, for yourself, and it helps you to bridge the gap between the HR and with your finance, with your operation, with your other business partners. So that's one area. So and secondly, right, so we can start with workforce related planning, but in the future, right, so let's say you decide to onboard the platform. So but in the future, right, actually you can introduce this platform to your other business partner, like your finance team, your operation team. So actually then you don't have to pay any additional to enjoy the same platform, because it's a centralized platform, and we want to help you to make use of this platform to achieve the so-called centralized planning process. So everything is streamlined and automated. So I would say, based on our past experience, if you have headcount 100 and above, probably the investment can be justified. So again, the point here is it's not only for HR. So in the future, right, what you need to do is just to add more users. So if, let's say, in the future you want the finance team to be involved, because you can see, right, in terms of corporate level planning, there's a very close connection between HR and finance. And when it comes to resource planning, there's a very close connection between the HR and operation. So it makes sense that in the future, right, you will introduce this to your other colleagues, and then you have this so-called centralized platform to manage your entire corporate level business planning process. So HR is just one of the very critical players in this process. But of course, you can also just start for HR alone, not an issue at all, because one major application, as what we have showed you, is about the headcount and compensation planning, and also about the talent planning, and also like job cuts planning. So all these are very applicable to HR. So I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Yukan. I think you answered also my next queries with regard to how centralized it is, because in our organization, not only other divisions, but we have many subsidiaries. So is there a possibility for this to also be implemented in these subsidiaries, and then for the holding to have a consolidated view of all the, workforce situation gap and have that consolidated in the HR head office or
Yes.
at the holding.
Yes, basically there's a very important feature of the system it's the concept of level. So basically level where is what we use to model your organization structure. Like you said, there's a HQ, and on it there could be many subsidiaries in other geographic locations, and right. So you just need to, okay. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that in order for your subsidiary to use a platform, they have to purchase their own license. No need. So you just need a one-time purchase of the platform, and it doesn't matter where the user is sitting. So it can be Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, or any other countries. So then you're doing this kind of your workforce planning collaboratively. So, and also don't worry too much on the so-called access control. So basically, the system has a very powerful and secured access control rules. It's role-based. So because HR, we know there's a lot of confidential and sensitive data, right? So not everyone are supposed to see it. So don't worry on that. This is all being well taken care of with the system, with our building access control rules. Yeah.
So if I may just add to that. So also, and I think we touched on that a little bit during the presentation. So especially you have many different locations, how HR plan for commissions and bonuses and for various things that the company have to pay for the employee. I'm thinking here of social security and this kind of thing, and for Singapore CPF. So all of these are different across various territories, but all of those can be integrated into the same model. So the people or the HR managers in the different regions can plan locally, but the data or the information will be gathered either at the HQ or the roll-up at the top, and they can even plan in their own currency. There is a multi-currency conversion capability in the system too, and the currencies can be by different versions as well. So we can operate with multiple currencies and many different rates as well. So we can even do currency what if scenarios and so on and so forth. So everyone can plan locally, but we can capture the data at the top if necessary. So that's what I would like to add here.
Very clear, thank you.
Yeah, we can have more detailed discussion after the session. I'm sure that you may have a lot of other questions to ask, and also we can, we tried our best to cover the various major applications of the platform, but because of time constraint, it's not possible for us to cover every single corner. So yeah, if you do have other things that you want to find out more, feel free to reach out to us. Yeah, after this. So any other questions from the participants? Maybe let's just have one last question to address because it's already past 3 p.m. So I know everyone's busy. Yeah. No? Okay. I think if there's no any other questions, then we can end this session. And once again, thank you everyone for your time, and let us touch base again after this session. Yeah, thanks everyone, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, and the recording will be shared. Yeah, so don't worry. So yeah, if you have time, and feel free to watch it. Thanks.
Cool.